Hi, Shivaji.
Hi, Lee.
Great.
Okay.
So, welcome to everyone to a special IPTC webcast. This is a Q&A session on the IPTC Society Top Papers Part 1. I am Ili Afifuddin from Global Exploration and Appraisal Business Development at Westwood Global Energy Group. And I'll be your session chair together with Shivaji. My co-chair, Shivaji Maitra, is the Director and Imaging Manager at CGG Malaysia. So welcome to all of you, and we are very pleased to be here today. As session chairs, Shivaji will now introduce you to the speakers for today's Q&A session. So over to you, Shivaji.
Thank you, Eli. The first speaker or the first person who we are going to take questions from is for Reetam Biswas from BP, based on his presentation on density inversion for seismic using a trans-dimensional approach field dataset example. Reetam, please come over. Yeah, okay, good. Eli, maybe you have some questions to start with.
Yes. So just to remind everyone, we now can receive all of your questions live in the on our social media platforms and here under comments. So please leave any questions you may have at the moment. So just looking at questions that we have been given, the first question here for Reetam is, can you provide the reason or benefits of using a transdimensional MCMC method in comparison to simple MCMC methods?
Yeah, sure. So in a transdimensional MCMC method, here we also estimate the number of model parameter as well. In comparison to a simple MCMC or traditional MCMC method where the number of model parameters are kept fixed. So if we start any inversion with a fixed number of model parameter, now there can be two cases in this. So in the first case, we might have started with less number of model parameter. Then what happen is that we will not be able to fit the data itself. So our model will be poorly localized. But on the other hand, if we start with many number of model parameters, that is the over parameterization case, we will fit each and every data point, and our model will be better localized, but it will fit the noise as well. So in general, what we do is that we add a regulation term, and this regulation term sometimes add excessive smoothing, unnecessary smoothing. So therefore, here in this method, what we try to do is that we try to solve the inversion problem in a transdimensional fashion. That is, we also estimate the number of model parameters. So here we do not have to add any regression term, and therefore we can get a better resolution, which matches the resolution power of the dataset itself. So therefore, this is the reason why we have chosen a transdimensional method for the density inversion.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Reetam. There is a follow-up question from one of our attendees here, from Parag. Thank you very much. So his question is, can it be applied to any kind of fields around the globe, or is it specific to some field?
That's a really good question. No, actually, you can apply it to any field data, but specifically for density inversion, one of the important thing is that the data need to be sensitive towards density, as well as we need to have data from far angle as well, because density from the near offset or the near angle, we do not get a good estimate of the density. So if this conditions holds true, then we can apply this method to any field throughout the world. It's not limited to a particular field.
Okay, great. Thank you for that answer. So just on to the next question that we have here. What was the reason for combining the Hamiltonian Monte Carlo with the RJM CMC? Doesn't it add computation costs due to calculation of the gradients?
Yeah, so here one of the important thing about RGM CMC is that we are trying to sample from a variable dimensional model space. That is, with every step or every iteration, the number of model parameter itself changes. So in theory, it will require many iterations to converge. But whenever we are applying it on a data set, practically it's not feasible to like run the inversion for infinite time. So therefore, one of the motivation was here is to converge the inversion algorithm in a feasible amount of time. So therefore, we coupled the RGMC, that is the transdimensional sampling, along with a Hamiltonian Monte Carlo method, which basically uses the gradient information as well. And this basically helps the whole method to converge in infinite number of iterations. So in our paper, we actually showed the comparison of the number of iteration taken by RJMC along with the RJHMC, which is the method we applied over here. And we have seen that RJHMC takes around for that inversion problem take around 50,000 iteration, but here with RJHMC, with it, that is the coupled with Hamilton Monte Carlo, it takes around 4,000 or 5,000 iterations to converge. So that was the main motivation of clubbing these two methods. And yeah, gradient computation does add computation cost, but here for the AVO inversion problem, which is quite a simple forward problem, here what we did is that we tried to take the advantage of auto differentiation capability, and which basically helps in calculating the gradient very fast, and therefore it doesn't add a lot of computation burden.
Maybe I can take the next question.
Yes, sure.
For the Hamiltonian Monte Carlo solution inversion, how many iterations are you performing, and what is the choice of the mass matrix?
Yeah, for the Hamilton Monte Carlo here, I am basically performing around 2 iteration of Hamilton Monte Carlo, so as to it doesn't increase the computation cost or the gradient calculation a lot, as well as we are able to converge as well. So I'm doing two Hamiltonian simulation per iteration of the method, and since this is a transdimensional method. So we cannot define a mass matrix using some complicated formula. So here I have taken a identity matrix, which basically means that all the momentum terms are not correlated.
Okay, great. Thanks for your answer, Reetam. I think we do have 2 more questions here that we have. Maybe I'll take the first one and then over to you, Shivaji.
Okay.
So the last 2 questions here. What is the conventional attribute you mentioned in the slide?
Yeah, so in the slide basically I showed two maps. So the first map was from a conventional attribute, which in industries it's generally looked at to see like whether there is a paleoresidual gas or a full gas saturation. So this is basically the root mean square of the extended elastic impedance at chi angle of 30. And that map we basically compared with our density map.
Right. Thank you, Reetam. The last question: how reliable is the method in predicting PRG in every case? For example?
Yeah, so same answer as one of the comments which we had. So this method depends a lot on the how good quality is your data itself. That is, the data need to show sensitivity towards density, which is not always the case. That is only in the region where we have gas type of reservoir. So in that type of reservoir, data does show some sensitivity towards density. So in that kind of zone, the density estimate can be much better than the than other kind of data set. So, but if we consider predicting the paleoresidual gas, it is a very difficult problem in itself, because when we compare fully saturated reservoir and comparing with the paleoresidual gas reservoir, the difference is like very small, 0.2 gram per cc, and which can be very difficult to estimate. So but if we look at this method, it does add some resolution, and sometimes this resolution, with this higher resolution, we are able to get the paleoresidual the difference in the density of the paleoresidual gas and the fully gas saturation. But it also need to be clubbed with, along with some other interpreted volume as well. We should not like completely blindly trust on the density estimate from this method only.
Okay, that's good, Reetam. Shivaji, I can see there are some, two comments, two questions in the comments box here. We'll take those last two questions because we do have another speaker that we would like to ask questions to as well. So just looking at the live commentary here, we have another question from Parag on what kind of software do you use for this work?
Yeah, so here we for calculating the auto differentiation, we have used the JAX, which is a library software it is based on Python. It's a library software from Google, and other than that, most of the coding is done in Python.
All right, thank you. That's great. And then the last question here before we move on. So what are the potential limitations of the Monte Carlo simulation?
Yeah, some of the potential limitation can be is that the convergence. Sometimes you need to run many iterations just to see, as well as that how many that what are the best tuning factors, such that your Monte Carlo simulation produces the best result before running it on a larger data set or larger volume.
Okay, great. Thank you, Reetam. So just looking at the time now, we have to move on to the next speaker. So thanks very much, Reetam, for all your answers. That's just great.
Thank you, Ili. Thank you, Shivaji.
Great. Shivaji, so who do we have next?
Okay, so next we have Richard Ford from Western GECO. We have the questions based on his presentation on fast turnaround OBS, time-lapse processing enabled by up-down deconvolution, a North Sea case study. Richard, welcome to the question and answer session.
Hi, Richard.
Hi. Richard, your mic is muted. Maybe you want to unmute your mic.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, Ili, maybe I can start off with the questions.
Yes, go ahead.
The first question we have is, has the up-down deconvolution fast turnaround workflow been repeated for other surveys, and is it now something commonly performed?
I would say it is something that has been performed on other surveys, but not so much in a 4D sense, but more in a 3D sense. So what we do is put the workflow, the data through the workflow, and output a fast turnaround result. And from there, we then put it through various iterations to improve upon the result. But it would be nice to get more examples for the 4D sense, because we believe that it's hugely beneficial to output a fast turnaround result to assess the time-lapse signal and whether we need to go back and improve upon it. But yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks for that.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Ili.
Okay, so I'll take the next question here. Is this workflow applicable to the converted wave or PS data?
It is in a sense. So up-down deconvolution has can also be performed on the PS data. So we have, in essence, the radial data, which can be considered the upgoing, and we also have the downgoing, which is the pressure minus the vertical geophone. And we can treat the upgoing of the radial in the same way as the upgoing for the decomposed P plus Z component. And therefore we have something we call radial down deconvolution, which produces a similar result. So D goes to demultipled and zero phase converted wave dataset. And we process that in almost the same way as the conventional PP upgoing, with the main difference that we use the radial, which is the rotated from the horizontal geophone components, the Vx and the Vy. So that does add an extra step. So it is a slightly slower than the PP workflow, but essentially we come to the same result. And we did actually do that for the Everett Greek field, and yeah, and we got a good 4D result. So the benefit of the PS is that you can differentiate between pressure and saturation in conjunction with the PP data, and the PS will isolate more pressure-related effects at the well locations or within the reservoir location. Whereas the PP is a combination of the pressure and saturation. So it's very nice to have those two direct comparisons, and very nice to have them both through very similar workflows, because yeah, you know what you're getting. There aren't going to be any big surprises with your 4D signal.
I have a leading question from there, just based on my understanding or experience. Since the PP and the PS data are in two different times, how do you sort of resolve that time difference when you do the S down, PS down deconvolution? Yeah. Okay,
yeah. So for the yeah, it's true that the primary events are in different times, but your free surface multiple, the energy that bounces up and down in the water layer, comes in at the same time on the PP and PS. So that's you're removing everything that's bouncing around in the free surface. So that is how you can sort of subtract that multiple, because it still arrives in the same time in the tau P domain. And yeah, that's essentially it.
So like you mentioned, this is, and I know that the up-down deconvolution is like a tau P based thing, and it's basically sort of a 1D or a 1.5D approximation. So how do you handle wave fields which are arriving like at a high angle of incidence?
Okay, so yeah, you're absolutely right. It is a 1D or a 1.5D process. And that is one of the significant limitations of up-down deconvolution, because it can only be applied in flat water layers, or in theory 1D geology, but it can be pushed beyond those boundaries to more 1.5D or even sort of 3D subsurfaces. For high angle of incidences in the tau P domain, you sort of get everything coming to a convergence. So your water bottom and your multiple all come very close to one another. And for that, we do apply a scaling in tau P. So it's a 1 over cosine of the incidence angle, which sort of scales down the high angles. And we call this an obliquity correction. For shallow water, you're not really going to use those high angles, but I guess for when you're using the downgoing data for deeper water, you're going to have to maybe consider treating those high angles of incidence a little bit better, maybe not muting them out, or yeah, you'd have to consider what you want from those high angles, and how you also handle the post-critical data, the incidence angles that go beyond where the radial slowness is greater than the slowness of water velocity.
Understand. Thank you, Richard. Ili, how do you want to proceed?
Yes. So just checking on the time here. So we do have to end the session very soon. Just looking at the comments. Thanks very much for everyone for joining. I can see lots of you saying good morning, good afternoon. So thank you very much for joining us. Maybe we can ask Richard if he has any final comments on his topic before we adjourn. Do you have any comments to add, Richard? Or
oh no, just that it's a fantastic workflow. Yeah, and yeah, we're seeing good, very good results from that workflow across many projects. And yeah, please give it a go if you have the chance.
Okay, all right, that's great. Okay, so we do have we were supposed to have a third speaker for today's Q&A session, but unfortunately Arshad Raza has some connection issues joining this live session. So if any of you in the audience do have questions for Arshad, please post it here in the comment section, and then hopefully we'll get Arshad to reply to you via the IPTC social media channel in due course. Okay.
All right.
All right then. So once again, thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks for leaving your comments there as well. And be sure to join. Yeah, so be sure to join us for the part 2 IPTC live.
Thank you, Eli. Thank you for helping me out also, of course.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for joining us. Looking forward to the next time. Thank you.
All right then. Take care everyone. Bye.
Bye.